The Art of Living. 16. Temperance and self-possession. The virtue of temperance, the virtue that moderates the attraction of pleasure, sometimes gets a bad reputation. Many people today object to such a notion. What's wrong with seeking pleasure? Experiencing pleasure is not bad. I'm not hurting anyone. Shouldn't I be able to pursue as much pleasure as I can? Even for some devout Christians, temperance, with its call for self-control and moderation, might seem like a boring or even gloomy virtue that tells us, don't enjoy food too much, don't drink too much, don't experience sexual pleasure except within marriage. From this negative perspective, temperance can appear to be one big no. In the Catholic tradition, however, the focus of temperance is not about denying ourselves pleasure. Rather, it is about giving us the ability to take delight in life's greatest goods. As we will see, temperance is not one big no, but rather a yes to the highest enjoyments in life. Chips and salsa. The beauty of the virtue of temperance reminds me of chips and salsa. If you've ever eaten at a Mexican restaurant, you've probably had the experience of being served a large basket of warm, multicolored chips and a bowl of chunky red salsa while waiting for your main course. By the time the server brings out your enchilada platter, you have already finished the basket of chips and feel too full to eat what you ordered. There is certainly nothing wrong with enjoying some chips and salsa before a meal, but when we fill ourselves up on them, we are not able to enjoy the main dish. Similarly, there is nothing wrong with pleasure in and of itself. According to St. Thomas Aquinas, God introduced the greatest amount of pleasure into the actions most necessary for human life, the action related to the preservation of the individual, the consumption of food and drink, and the action related to the preservation of the species as a whole, sexual intercourse. As God wants us to enjoy these and other pleasures in life, however, if we are not careful to moderate our attractions to these sensory pleasures, we will fill ourselves up on them and not be able to enjoy the main course in life. That is, life's highest goals, such as truth, goodness, beauty, friendship, and love. Made for more. A man is made for more than pleasure. He is made to give the best of himself in his relationships. A lack of temperance prevents a man from loving his God, his spouse, his children, and his friends as well as he could. When a man lacks self-control, he becomes a slave to his desire for pleasure, always selfishly focusing on pleasing himself. Such a man will have difficulty sacrificing for others. He will often put his desires and preferences before others. He might be so focused on entertaining himself that he does not even notice the needs of those around him. He might even use other people as a means to experience the pleasure he seeks. Sadly, this is how many people live today, seeking one pleasurable experience after another. Think of a teenager, for example, who may spend many hours on the weekend constantly entertaining himself, playing video games, watching YouTube videos, updating and checking social media, and messaging friends, all while filling himself up with multiple drinks, meals, and snacks, never letting the first sign of thirst or hunger linger for more than 55 seconds. When a young person is enslaved to his passions like this, drifting from one moment of amusement to another, one moment of pleasure to another, it is no wonder he has a difficult time having true friendships and meaningful conversations with the people around him. He has been trained to be so focused on pleasing himself that it is not easy for him to enter into other people's lives and give the best of himself in friendship to them. I want it. Aristotle calls the lack of temperance a childish fault, for it makes a person act like a child in various ways. First, it does so in terms of what he desires. A toddler does not seek what is best according to good reason. He seeks what is best according to his stomach. As soon as he experiences a rumbling in his tummy, he cries, "I am so hungry." The moment he senses thirst, he cries, "Drink, please. Mommy, give me a drink." It does not matter if this happens at the moment of consecration during Mass, when hundreds of other people are quietly and prayerfully trying to enter the sacred liturgy. It does not matter if this occurs at the doctor's office, where there's no food or drink to be found. The cries for food or drink might suddenly burst out at any moment that the child notices the feeling of hunger or thirst. Similarly, an undisciplined toddler at a store might see a toy and demand that his mother buy it for him. It does not matter that the mother said, "But Johnny, this was not on the shopping list," or "It cost too much money, Johnny," or "We already have 5 other toys like that, this one at home." The toddler does not follow such logic. He sees something he wants and might be tempted to throw a fit if he doesn't get it, stomping his feet and crying out, "I want it, I want it, I want it." We adults act like children when we give in to concupiscence, which is the inclination toward desire that is the result of our fallen human nature. Concupiscence left unchecked is like an unrestrained little child within us shouting, "I want it, I want it." We give in to that little child within us every time we eat that chocolate dessert that we know we shouldn't, or take a second, this time more lustful look at that scantily dressed woman in an advertisement on the side of our screen, or purchase that nice article of clothing that we know we don't really need. There are 2 main important practical lessons we can draw from this analogy of the unruly child. On one hand, the person who lacks temperance is like the undisciplined child. The more the toddler gets what he wants, the more self-willed he becomes. Similarly, the more we indulge our fallen concupiscent desires, the more they gain strength over us. For example, before his conversion, St. Augustine found that the more he gave into his lustful desire, the less power he had to resist it. When I gave in to lust, habit was born, and when I did not resist the habit, it became a necessity. On the other hand, the more a child's willfulness is checked, the more disciplined he becomes. Similarly, the more concupiscence is restrained, the more moderate one's desires become. One's concupiscent desires will have less of a hold on a person. This is good news for those who battle to free themselves from their enslavement to concupiscent desires. Though the struggle at first might be extremely difficult and even feel impossible to win, the longer one continues to resist, even in little ways, and even if the progress is slow, the stronger one's will becomes, and the weaker the hold will be that those concupiscent desires have over one's soul. The most dehumanizing sin. St. Thomas Aquinas calls intemperance the most disgraceful sin of the vices. He gives 2 reasons for this. First, intemperance is most opposed to our dignity as human persons. Like the animals, we also have desire for food, drink, and sex. Yet, unlike the animals, we are not meant to be enslaved to these desires. God gave us an intellect and a will by which we are capable of rising above our passions. We can reflect on how we want to live our lives, and then, based on that self-reflection, choose to act accordingly. As human persons, we can choose what to do with the various desires for pleasure that stir within us. Though a person might be hungry, he can choose to give his sandwich to a poor person on the street. Though a man may experience sensual desire for a woman who is not his wife, he can choose not to lust after her. Animals, however, are not capable of such considerate behavior and act according to their appetites and instincts. Therefore, when we lack temperance, we are controlled by the same appetites for pleasure that control the animals. Second, intemperance is most disgraceful because it dims our reason, from which we perform all good acts. When we lack the self-control of temperance, an array of virtues can be undermined because we are enslaved to the little concupiscent child within us screaming, "I want it, I want it." And that concupiscent voice is so loud that we do not hear the voice of reason clearly. No matter what resolutions we might have made that week, the desire for pleasure is so powerful that we set them aside. No matter what our conscience might be trying to remind us of, we might find ourselves rationalizing or making excuses for our intemperate actions. Whether it be eating that extra piece of dessert, "I'll cut back next week," drinking that extra beer, "I'm with friends," spending money on that item we don't really need, but it's such a good deal, binge watching our favorite series, "I'll just watch one more episode," staying up late at night on social media, "Just one more click," or glancing some more at that woman dressed in a certain way, "I just want one more look at her beauty and I'll let it stop there." The attraction to pleasure is so powerful that the I want it voice within us can drown out the voice of reason and lead us away from what is truly good. With this introduction to temperance, we are ready to consider some of the specific vices that entice us to act intemperately and the specific virtues we need to help us live with true interior freedom. We'll examine our powerful attraction to food, drink, and sex and consider the virtues of fasting, sobriety, and chastity, and the vices of gluttony, drunkenness, and lust. St. Thomas Aquinas also discusses other powerful desires that need to be restrained by temperance. For example, our desire to address injustice and set things right is good, but needs to be tempered by the virtue of meekness, so that we do not fall into sinful anger. Similarly, our desire for our own excellence is good, but needs to be tempered by the virtue of humility, lest we fall into the worst of all the vices, pride, which involves not accepting who we are as God's creatures, or our dependence on Him and His rule over our lives. Reflection questions. What impression do people in the world have about the virtue of temperance or self-control? How is temperance not simply about saying no to pleasure? How does it actually ensure we are able to experience the highest joys and pleasures in life, such as love, friendship, truth, goodness, and beauty? Read Proverbs 25, verse 28. How might a person lacking self-control be like a city broken into and left without walls?